Welcome to the Poker Jungle. We're trying something a little bit new. I want to try things in a little bit different kind of way to build your analysis of how to understand stuff when it comes to the poker world. We were going to do a deep dive into the hand, starting at the river and working backwards to preflop. We're going to figure it out. We're going to take the action from some of the best players, Linus and Davy, and figure out what they should do as their final action. All right, so we're going to look at position, how that shapes everything, pot size, how that also shapes everything. Pot size does change river play a fair bit, especially in big bet where you don't want to get check raised, or when you are deep. When you're not deep, doesn't matter as much. But when you're not deep, things tend to be a lot simpler. Anyway, river action, bets, checks, or folds, whatever we're going to do, and range questions. What could they have done? That kind of good, all that good stuff. We're going to start at the river. Yeah, we already said that. You're going to guess the turns. Going to go back to the flops. And we're going to see how the preflop may change the situation entirely. All right, so here we are. It's a pretty good situation. We're facing a river bet. We got trips. Pretty great situation. There's only so many things that could have happened here. If you've played much Jungleman before, you can guess some possible situations like here. So what can you guess happened on earlier streets, guys, based on what you can see here? And I'm going to be calling on you guys. No one can hide.
Trips versus possible double flush draw board paired. Probably going to be some action. I'm thinking we have a check right on the river from big blind, and button leads out. Yeah, what is 3/4? So turn, I'm guessing sort of the same check bet call. How much? I don't know, half pot maybe. No, probably bigger because of double flush board. I'm going to go 3/4 pot maybe again.
Well, it's going to be tough to guess what the turn bet size is unless you can guess what the exact action is totally, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But a half pot it could have been, sure, fine.
And then, yeah, either check raise or call, I guess, from Davy Jones. I'm guessing he called this time. I don't know. I'm gonna guess call.
There's only so many possibilities, really. But on the turn, he either bet, which is possible, and the other guy called, or he check called after doing something on the flop, like check raising or betting or checking. All those are really possible. We'll go into a few of those possibilities in a second. But yeah, so there's only so many ways that this hand can play out. And in all those situations, guess what? You got to call the river. A trip here, a pretty easy decision, I would have to say, no matter what the spots are. But
I wanted to say that first, we can see that the pot is pretty big, so we can ask ourselves if it's a single raise pot or a 3-bet pot. We know it's not a 4-bet pot because it's 7-4 suited. We can imagine different type of line. Maybe check raise on flop, barrel on the turn, something like that.
Yeah, that one makes a lot of sense. That's definitely a possibility. That's probably one of the most likely lines, to be honest. Or check call, because those are the most likely lines that are taken in general. Most people don't really 3-bet and check all the way. It does look like there's a good chance that's what happened. That seems like one of the most likely possibilities, and he has the most slam dunk call of all time in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think all those are great assumptions, guys. There's not much else. Maybe check raise, check call, or 3-bet check. I guess that could happen. Some weird stuff like that. Some like weird 3-bet lines. That could also happen, I guess.
Check raise, bet, check call, or check call, check raise, check.
Oh, another thing, by the way, it's 3-handed. So that changes things a little bit.
I like what Anderson said. I think we could note some lines if someone has other ideas.
Sure. Well, go ahead. What other lines are we talking? I got a couple ideas, but it wouldn't really be taken, to be honest.
It would be one of these two mostly, I think. Unless like the guy is just donking, right? Then is a different thing. Like it's the only line I think nobody suggested, right? You could like donk, but to get a pot this big, then in position would have to raise at some point.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
For me, the most important data point is the pot size, right? And the positions, right? But mostly the pot size. So like the pot is so big that it caps a lot of possibilities by itself.
Yeah, for sure. Donk I didn't even think of. Yeah, he could have like donked. Yeah, he could have donked check raise, stuff like that. Some spicy shit. I mean, it's okay to do it. It's like seems reasonable. All right. Well, these are all good ideas, guys. All right, and we're taking a step back. Now we see something else. You see some weird stuff going on here. We got to reverse engineer this one now. So this is the turn. Which player's range benefits from the turn card? Which is a good start to this.
The ranges would be like wide, like very wide, both of them, right? So like both of them could have all the straights and all the bows.
Well, the big blind definitely benefits from the turn because it's more his range than I would say the.
Yeah, I agree. Big blind has more combos, most likely, but
I think it's a decent guess. I would say it's the big blind has a little bit more combos than nuts, you can say, whereas the button's not supposed to play 8-6 offsuit more than the big blind, right? And the big blind should have more 7x and stuff like that. So I guess that's what David Jones is going for here. I don't know what's up with this. Like, this is pretty weird with the 2.4x overbet turn check raise.
No, but look, now we can see the action from zero. Like there is all the elements for us to know the line and what happened.
Yeah, you can guess that went check on the flop. Still,
Exactly.
man, it's like,
this crazy guys, man. Like you can never tell. Like what the fuck is this?
I guess it could also go bet, raise, 3-bet.
yeah, actually, you're right. It could have gone that way. It's actually a decent clue. They could have been like a small bet and then Linus raised and 3-bet to 7-4. That's actually, that seems almost more likely than check raise. It definitely looks like there's a check call on the flop. It's actually a good observation.
So Jungle, I gotta ask, man. Like when you go like super high level, like you and them, like you just decide to create new lines out of scratch because the other lines everybody knows about.
Not necessarily. I try to make them make sense. So if I know someone's doing something with high frequency, what I'll do is counter that with something to just do something to counter that, and it might look weird, right? So if you happen to play some live poker, you got to know what the rake is, you got to know what realistic win rates are, you got to know this kind of stuff. Speaking of which, on the Jungleverse, we provide many resources to help many of you up-and-coming players in order to avoid many pitfalls that many people play, also to avoid getting cheating. We provide some details of what to look out for. We have a map of what the best online sites are to play at and why, and what kind of games you're looking for. If you want to try your luck and try to strike it rich, playing tournaments, why not? The math's a bit against you. We have the resources for that too. So an example would be a lot of people bet at very high frequency versus missed turn C bet, or they do like a cute size bet on a lot of these polar spots, and they tend to be weaker, especially if I know that they slow play. So I'll check raise. That's one example. Or if I know they are just totally insane against leads, then I'll just start leading. Or if I know that they like to just bet when check to in any spot, I'll just like bet lead and then check raise. All that's, fair game. You can do all that stuff. Or there's also some lines that aren't really taken that much and the solver uses, such as bet lead turn as a probe and like check raise river. That's actually more of a thing than people think. But here we're gonna see if we can get to the bottom of this one. It's pretty spicy right now. But yeah, there's only really a couple possibilities here. You guys got both of them. It looks like one is bet raise and then 3-bet, and the other one is check raise versus an overbet, which actually seems to make less sense. But you guys seem to get the clues. We don't. Yeah, I would say it might be bet 3-bet. Yeah, and I would say the big blind improves a little bit it benefits them a little bit just because they have more combinations of the nuts than the other players. And yeah, that's about it. Let's move forward. Now we're moving to the flop. And then we want to ask the question, which player's range has the advantage and how significant is it? So that's the first question. What do you guys think about that one? I kind of answered it partly.
I guess Robert wants to go for it.
Well, it would be the big blind because the button open raised, basically. So
Well, I think it's the small blind for sure, the button for sure.
yeah.
Robert, you can say something too. What do you want to say?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say the big blind. I would say would have the advantage on this flop because it's more of his range that hits this.
I think that the big blind has more combinations of nuts, essentially. But I think the button still has a stronger range overall, just because button just has loads of stuff. The button just has strong hands.
I agree that he would have the stronger range, but not necessarily flopped as well.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I would think the button has like some kind of small advantage here, but the big blind, there's no way the big blind's like winning money on this flop. I could be wrong, I guess. We're gonna find out.
No, but at least we can say that the big blind can be competitive compared to other boards where it's completely crushed.
Yeah, of course.
Good point, man.
Yeah, so I don't think there's too many boards, if any, that the big blind really has an advantage on if we're talking equity.
Yeah, like raw equity, right? Not just nuts.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they just have like jacks on this board, like what are you gonna do? If the guy just has jacks, you're kind of screwed. Even if you know he's got jacks, he just can call you and you're fucked. Or at the right frequency, you're fucked. It's kind of how game theory works, right? So, but yeah, lots of check raises, and if the imposition player doesn't check back quite a lot, like at least 40%, then the imposition player is really, really vulnerable to a check raise.
I have a question regarding the ranges.
Yeah.
Would, in this configuration with only 3 players, would 7s and 9s usually be raised from the big blind in defense? Because if so, then he would have less combos of nuts than.
You mean pre-flop 7s and 9s?
Yeah, pre-flop. Yeah.
The 7-9 suited is actually 3-bet a little bit. Sevens, pocket 7s, pocket 9s is 3-bet a little bit, but not 100%.
Right. Even
And
300. Yeah.
And the next question is about how deep you are. So that's a bit relevant to it too. And how does that affect the continuation bet strategy on this board? Anyone have any ideas how it affects things that were almost 200 big blinds deep?
Well, in my opinion, we should split a bit more. Like, at least in theory, like, doesn't look like the board that we're gonna always want to see bet, right? Because then, theory-wise, big blind's gonna have enough check raises in defense, right? Like that's a board we can get punished by over c-betting. Even though I still think it's the preferred option, we're gonna find more checks. Naturally, that's what I would bet.
Okay.
Yeah, you're really right. It's like you don't want to bet too much tens or too much hands that cannot support a lot of leverage. You want to be more cautiously than you want to play more cautiously than if you are 100 deep.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
I think that, like, compared to other 7 combos, like, you probably want to maybe consider c-betting 7-4 more than something like 7-10 and 7-jack, because their main raising, which is raising range, is probably going to be like the overcard.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I would say that's true too. You don't really want to give backdoor draws equity, especially. That's one of my thoughts on that. Yeah, you kind of do want to check, especially in PLL. You want to check when you block the draws that people can have, and you want to bet when you don't block them, so that they either fold or raise them or whatever, right? And don't get there with backdoor equity. But there's a little bit. It doesn't matter that much, but because it's like there's just a few combinatorics things. And, okay, anyone else have any ideas?
Also, I think the fact that it's not 997 and it's 977, it's a bit different. We have to be, we cannot like just YOLO 7. So yeah, even 100 deep. So
Okay. I think, by the way, I think this one's a little bit tricky. So I think that this one actually, in theory, changes for a bit of a different reason, deeper. And in practice, people play it basically the same, 100 and 200 deep. But the thing is that I think that what's supposed to happen is, yes, you do check back a bit more, but I think the real reason for that is basically to protect against the out of position player doing a lot more crazy stuff if you check back. I think that's one of the things anyway. Is they
Yep.
can really pile and make it very difficult for you to do much about it unless you do have enough traps. Whereas, I mean, I guess I could do that for 100 too. I'm trying to think really what the difference is. But the problem is that 7x is basically the nuts in almost all these situations, unless you really go into some weird rabbit holes. And so a lot of it's just going to base around how many 7x combos both players have and how much they have if they check back and all that. But I think that there's just a bit more turn play and river play if the pots are a little bit deeper. That's all. That might mean that you see a bit more nut type combos actually. But I think it's not going to change too much, other than, yeah, you might want to protect some of the weirder trees in your range with the deeper play. But yeah, anyway, let's move on. Maybe that's what we're getting at here with these weird 3-bet lines. Maybe that's why these guys have decided to take these goofy lines. I keep doing that. All right, here we go. Okay. So yeah, we knew that. We knew what the preflop action was. What a surprise. It's a raise and a call. How do preflop ranges widen with deep stacks? Yeah, so the first question, there is a difference here. What do you guys think for 100 versus 200 preflop?
Your raises like for lower amounts of big blinds, like your raises probably have a lower amount of blocks for like aces and kings. And for higher SPR situations, like you probably want to be raising like deep stack situations. You can exchange those for like lower suited connectors and things like that for implied odds reasons.
You want to be raising the lower suited connectors for what? What are you saying about the lower suited connectors?
Like you would prefer raising something like 5-6 suited versus like ace-8 off.
You mean in the big blind?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I would say generally that's true, or at least you want to polarize a bit more when you 3-bet, and higher equity hands go up in value when you're more shallow, and go down in value when you're deeper. And also you want to protect a little bit for when they overbet and stuff like that if you're deeper in single raise pots. So that matters a bit. Yeah, so that's basically the difference. Yeah, it just basically play a little bit more polar with your 3-bets, more suited connector stuff, and or more overall to your range anyway.
you also widen your range. Like for example, you would defend a bit in big blind. You would call a bit wider, no?
You would call more, but you wouldn't call wider range overall. If anything, you might fold some hands, I would think, because the button has a little bit bigger position, a little bit bigger advantage when it's in position. But that's really the most of the difference. It doesn't really change that much. Another thing I will add is that the button can play a wider range, but not as wide as you guys might think versus 3-bets, because a big problem is, well, first of all, the 3-better's range is a bit tighter in the first place. And secondly, if people don't have great prices, you still have to find ways of, calling and raising or whatever it is to win the pot. Whereas, you have the position with a lot of hands, but a lot of hands just suck too much for all those kind of options in order for you to continue. And that's actually how it works. Not you have implied odds if you make a hand. That's only one of the possibilities. You make a hand and they barrel off. That's only one of the possibilities. There's a bunch of other possibilities too. So you can't get too jiggy with it versus a 3-bet when you're in position. So that's important to know. The button's range can be a little bit wider in position also for raising, so that matters too. It doesn't really change this spot too much, but something you guys should know. How does our range change against top players compared to baseline strategy? So how I'd answer that is, or should I let you guys answer that? All right, well, let me put it this way for you guys. If you're playing against someone who's not very sophisticated, what should you do differently from GTO?
So I think it's kind of a tricky question to phrase and answer to, so I'm gonna just try my best, right? So GTO will have all the tools available and will deploy them against itself all the time, because otherwise it won't reach the desired outcome. And that's the first thing that I'm going to completely take off the equation, right? Whenever I'm playing a low sophistication level player, I will just trim down the most weapons GTO could have and just try to narrow it to the most obvious lines. So I'm just going to expect those more often. And I'm going to also think in those lines, they will be simpler. So let's say like the most obvious lines here for post flop would be like the check raise or the check call only, right? So I would just assume most players would be there, and that their range compositions are going to be very straightforward. Like there wouldn't be like a robustness to the range.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, you could say that's generally true. Their ranges aren't going to be very sophisticated a lot of the time. Yeah, they do tend to take the more straightforward lines. I would say that if players are not sophisticated, their weirder lines are going to be, most of the time, at least if in the loose passive-ish category, they're going to be on the tight side. Or rather, their raises are going to be value in weird ways. Their weird options are going to be value. I have a couple other things that I'm looking for specifically. Joshua, what are you? What's up?
Oh, I was just gonna add that maybe from like a bigger perspective, like all your hands suddenly have more EV since they're not playing perfectly. So maybe you can play more hands.
Yeah, that's true often, but not always true. As an example, someone may just like go all in pre-flop, and that's pretty terrible, right? But your 5-6 off is not doing as well when they go all in pre-flop. Or a more realistic example is if they like 3-bet every single time, or 3-bet like a huge percentage of the time. You don't want to open 5-6 off, so you want to just fold it, or like min raise it or whatever. I mean, I think Raphael found that min raising is actually pretty good.
What I wanted to add is what I would do again if I know the guy is not sophisticated. He has obvious leak. So for example, if he folds too much against him pre-flop, I would raise a bit wider than GTO. It's very basic but efficient. And if he is likely to re-raise a lot, it's an aggressive player. And if it's a top player, I would play tighter in general.
Okay, yeah. These things work. I would say you may have to play tighter out of position specifically. In position, maybe if like they're extremely competitive and very aggressive, I guess. But that's not so important. What I was really looking for was I would like take more polar ways of adjusting, or excuse me, not more polar ways, more like clear ways of adjusting. So for example, if someone called a lot of 3-bets a lot, I said that twice, but if they would if they're just such a station pre-flop, they just start calling like Jack 9 offsuit and stuff, I would just start 3-betting like all the King 10s and King Jack and playing really straightforward against that. Or if they were not very aggressive post-flop, I'd defend wider and I'd just fold when they have it, like that kind of thing. I would take like these hard exploit lines a lot of the time. Whereas versus top players, I may make sure that I'm not getting exploited and may stick to what's GTO unless I have some kind of read, like that kind of thing. But yeah, that's more or less the case. Is I look for where precisely they're exploited and I take hard exploits lines. But we're hinting at all that, and yeah, you can add a few more hands. like by like a pip or two. Two pips is pretty loose actually, especially the offsuit combos. But if the other bad, you can add a pip for VPIP. All right, moving on.
What do
Oh.
you mean by adding a pip? Maybe it's not clear for everyone.
A pip of VPIP. Okay, so that means, say if you're supposed to open 8-4 suited, now you open 8-3 suited. That's one pip for suited combinations, and then you would open, instead of 9-5 suited, you open 9-4 suited, etc. Like that sort of thing. Offsuit combos would be, instead of 8-7 offsuit, you open 8-6 offsuit. That's pretty. We're really getting pretty loose with that. That's a lot looser than adding some suited combos of pips. So you could add like 2 pips of suited combos in an extreme-ish case, and 1 pip, maybe 2 pips of offsuit combos, and that's offsuit 2 is pretty nuts. That's what I'm talking about.
Yo, if I may, I just wanted to add one little thing, and that's mostly because some of my students are here, and also because
Sure.
there are new guys.
The new
from the
guys.
Jungleverse.
What up?
Hello, new guys. So, I think these discussions we are having here right now are extremely important because I see most people, they struggle mostly with preflop and they don't even realize it. Preflop is just such a dominant street, and since there is like so much content out there and so much like let's say average guidelines that everybody should abide to because someone posted that online, most people just don't derive all the EV they could derive from preflop. So here we have a clear example of that. Like most people would just think like, oh guys, a huge calling station preflop, I'm just gonna 3-bet tighter. But that's just not going to make the most money. And like recently we've been discussing about some tips, how to crush competition from lower stakes and even live poker. And a lot of the time it is about just really realizing where you can expand to get extra advantage. So I think most of you should note that down.
Yeah, that's true for being a lot of soft players. Should come up with a course for how to exploit people. That'll take a minute to create, but
I know the frustration of loving poker, believing you could make a living from it, yet not knowing if it's even possible, where to start, or what your options are. If you're feeling the same, I've got a gift for you. An exclusive Jungleverse training available to my YouTube family only this month for free. It will give you the clarity you need to decide if poker can be your path in less than 60 minutes. All you have to do is click the link in the description. Welcome to the jungle.
to go through a lot of caveats. We want to try a couple flowchart formats and see how people like that, and then that will be an introduction to exploits of sorts, because it can't really look 100% like what GTO strategy looks like. It doesn't follow 100% these clear cutoff lines for what's GTO for the most part. So it's almost like a little bit trickier to teach and there's also the fact of sometimes you don't want to exploit people 100% because it becomes too obvious, but this is true. You can do it in spots where it's not obvious anyway. That is, the less frequency the spot, the more often you can exploit people, because they're not going to pick it up anytime soon. But if they counter exploit you, then you have the opposite problem. Anyway,
which is actually rare, right? That's what I've been talking to them a lot. It's like people, they tend to overly commit to a line, so they won't be finding lots of 4-bets, for example, which should be the main counter when you're 3-betting loads, right? They're gonna call more. So
that's true. That's true. I think people find 4-bets.
4-betting is uncomfortable.
They 4-bet a fair bit. Depends. It's other things they really don't do too much. Some people don't 4-bet that much though. Beginners especially may not like to 4-bet. But yeah, I mean, the more obscure stuff, or the more calling versus check raises and things like that, and calling big river bets, they tend not to do too much. I'm going to switch to the actual hand. Let's load it up. Okay. Let's see what actually happens. Okay. No, he's gonna check. So it looks like okay, he does do the bet 3-bet thing. That's what happens. Whoever guessed that got it right. Good job. Bet 3-bet. We're gonna have to look at the solver for this one because this line is like I see why he did that actually. Man, I would never in my life fold trips here. Show his hand. What the fuck?
I mean, he blocks the top boat on the third.
I don't know about that. He wants to bluff this guy off trips or what? That was like one of the worst bets I've ever
He
seen.
wants to have bluff. Maybe he wants to be balanced.
That was one of the worst bluffs I've ever seen, to be honest.
He wants to
I don't know
show how
what he's doing.
big his bank account is.
What's that? Yeah, I guess that's really what he was trying to do.
Yeah,
Man, dude.
account.
All right. Well, yeah, that play was not good, man. Back to the questions. We need some answers. We've seen some things. Our eyes can't unsee what we've seen. Someone had a comment too. What range benefits from the river card? Let's start with that one. What do you guys think? Who benefits from the river card?
The button.
Yeah. Why do you think that?
Because that would be more his range, right? Like he could have an ace, and then he
Well,
try
we're
betting it maybe.
say again.
Well, I would think that he'd be betting the ace.
Well, he can, but when the guy bet 3 bets, he's repping like trips or straight or draw. So the ace, I don't think the ace really helps him that much, even if he has the ace. He needs like a flush in order to beat the guy who 3 bet.
Okay.
The backdoor
So
flush
how's
is probably
reputations?
better for the button, though.
Yeah. Robert, what were you
Because-
gonna say?
Oh no, I understand what you're saying there. I mean, he may have an ace, but it doesn't really help him according to what's transpired throughout the hand. Is what you're
Yeah.
saying there?
Well, yeah, he needs a flush, man. But he can have lots of flushes. I mean, Gabriel's right. Yeah, I mean the thing is that all the flush draws got there. So if he had a flush draw, now he got there, and he has to have something. We know he's got something. We don't know what it is.
I would have
But-
thought he had the front door and was going for that definitely. But
Yeah. If he had the front door, he just busted. If he had the back
Yeah.
door, he just got there. And if he had a straight, he just hasn't beat anyway.
Hmm.
So looking at it like this, we could start to see that this God, I forgot what Davy's line actually makes quite a bit of sense, at least with checking the river, because he loses a lot versus flushes. He loses a similar amount versus trips or flushes, or he does about the same for strips or flushes. Maybe he gets value from ace X, as you're saying, Robert. He has that. And Linus decides to bet ace X, which would be a very bold bet, by the way. And against 8-6, he this is about the same too. Against better hands, he saves some money actually if the guy has like a boat or whatever, because he's getting jammed on now has to decide. So his line's starting to look pretty good. He could have 10-8 that's busted as well. So a lot of Davy's line makes sense to me. What do you guys think?
So you're saying like he's at the bottom of his value range, and so checking makes sense.
It's more that, to be honest, it's not so much about being at the bottom of his value range in this spot. It's more just how does his hand play against all the other kinds of hands. That's a more useful thought process in a lot of these situations. As far as bottom of his value range, that only really matters against like top pros. Yeah, it doesn't matter that much against like most mediocre players. I wouldn't think too much about that. It matters more about how does your hand play and your range play against the other player. Like those things matter more. The range thing then you take into account whether you're at the bottom or so.
if he bets the river, only better hands are going to call.
Yeah, it's like what I wanted to say. Right?
So there's no
It could
good
be
reason
another
to
play.
raise
It
on the
could be
lead.
another play to bet this river. To
Well-
with the ace, no?
What are you saying, Raphael? I can't hear you.
I'm saying that it would be another play to bet this hand for 3/4 on the river in Davy's shoes.
Yeah, who bets 3/4? You're saying Davy should bet 3/4?
No, I'm saying like yeah, like he doesn't have the option to do other things than check, I think. Or maybe bet small.
He can bet. He can bet and get value from like 9x. It kind of depends on what he thinks Linus has. If a Linus always has 9x, then he can bet. Although it didn't seem to matter because Linus bet Queen 9 for some reason. So he got value from 9x. In which case check was actually a much better line, right? He could have had 6-4 too. I didn't even think of that. Or like Jack 10 or some crazy shit. But yeah, there's not a whole lot he gets value from. So that's a good observation. He can kind of cut himself a lot versus a lot of things. You could say one way of saying that is at the bottom of his range. That's one way of looking at it. I just want to like correct because that's not quite precise in this situation. You really want to think about how does your hand. First, you want to think about how does your hand line up against their range. If like they're thinking of how do they play their range against your range, that's when you go to GTO and think, okay, how do I play my range against theirs? That's actually the thought process. But first, you actually do think, okay, well, how does my hand play against their range? And see what their counter strategy to that is. Okay, so let's move on to another question.
If you happen to play some live poker, you got to know what the rake is. You got to know what realistic win rates are. You got to know this kind of stuff. Speaking of which, on the Jungleverse, we provide many resources to help many of you up-and-coming players in order to avoid many pitfalls that many people play. Also to avoid getting cheating, we provide some details of what to look out for. We have a map of what the best online sites are to play at and why, and what kind of games you're looking for. If you want to try your luck and try to strike it rich, playing tournaments, why not? The math's a bit against you. We have the resources for that too.
What is Linus's range? Does he overbluff or underbluff the spot? What are his natural bluffs? I answered that question a little bit, but I'll let one of you guys answer. Robert, do you want to give a shot at this one? What are his natural bluffs? And do you think he bluffs a lot if we check to him?
Yes, I would think so. If we're three-handed, there's going to be a lot of bluffs, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the turn was bet, 3-bet, call.
Yeah.
So that would say the big blind's got a pretty decent hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say try to limit the bluffs on the river.
What did you say about
But-
limiting the bluffs?
Well, don't get too crazy on the river, I would say, because he's already shown some aggression on the turn. And to try to get him off the hand at this point is probably futile. So,
Well, I'm talking about, let's say, Linus, the guy who it's checked to. So, you're saying that Linus shouldn't be so aggressive against, Davy. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
It's not a bad idea. But there's a couple caveats to that. So Linus hopes that. Okay, we'll let Joshua go first. We'll see what he's got to say.
I think as kind of like the caller on the turn, you're kind of saying that like you have something good or you have a flush, and so when the ace of hearts comes out, I think that's kind of one of the main like flush draws that you're going to be calling with on the turn, and so that actually kind of like cuts out a lot of his like quote bluffs on the like it improves his it blocks the bluffs that he would call with the semi bluffs that he would call with on the turn, and so there's less bluffs on the river, and so he has to. I'm guessing he just has to bluff with something, and so maybe that's why he bluffs with Queen 9.
That could have been what he was thinking, but I think he can have, and yeah, he's got to have something. You guys are right. He's got to have something at least decent. I think he can be wider than you guys might think, though, especially with Davy's polarizing line, and he may just not believe Davy. So I would think he at least has a decent percent of not great hands that he's kind of forced to bluff with, because all those hands would really look like a pile of shit.
On the turn, with the check raise is Linus trying to represent hitting the flush basically? That didn't happen till the end. Never mind. I missed it. But basically, he's acting like he got something on the turn. Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He's acting like he got something on the turn or hit the flush on the river. That's basically what he's trying to say. Or had slow play trips. He's not checking chips on the river, I don't think.
But Davy, so it's less likely
Well, he might have.
that Davy had pocket nines, right? Because he was blocking with a queen nine.
Yeah, he probably doesn't have pocket nines, man. He probably has like 8-6 or something. Or Davy might have like 10-8 with the spade or
7-4.
Yeah, he might have 7-4. When he checks, it's a bit suspect actually. But Linus could have quite a few things. He could have quite some draws. He could have 6-4. He could have 10. Well, he can't really have 10-6, I guess, unless he's crazy. He can have 10-8. He can have spades. That's also another possibility. It's a bit more reasonable in a way than queen nine. So those ones would be what we call the natural bluffs. Those are the hands that are just so bad that they can't win. And the idea is that he hopes he has enough value bets that he can counter the fact that he has those kinds of things, or that Davy just doesn't have enough value in order to check call in the first place, and so he can get away with betting quite small with a lot of these kinds of things, and he's just going to get a fold a lot of the time. Those are the natural bluffs, are those hands that just have like no showdown value and can't win. Especially spades, I would say, or like actually his first ones are going to be, if he has 6-4, I don't know if that one's really good enough to call a turn with, if we're really being honest. Like 10-8 is going to be his first bluffs, because Davy's going to fold flush draws and stuff like spades, and he doesn't block those. But yeah, so those are the things that he can bluff with. But he's also adding a lot of 9x. He's trying to think that he thinks that he's got enough 8-6 or 9x or flushes or trips that he can have. He bet this kind of size. If I had to answer this question, I would say he's overbluffing this spot if he includes 9x, because I just don't think this guy has enough flushes as he thinks. And like he theoretically should have more busted spades draws if he has the spade draws and all the heart draws, which he should have at kind of a similar frequency, I would think. And I mean, like if we add some like 10-8 to the picture, okay, now we're really talking. Now he's got loads of bluffs and he's betting 70% pot. And now he's got some 9x in there, which is some extra spice. So you can see pretty easily, at least from what he turned up with, he's definitely over bluffing this weird spot. There's a really good chance anyway, I should say. So that would be my answer to this question, especially considering he seemed to think Davy is going to fold trips or something, or like a river ace. Man, I don't think so. That's pretty crazy. And he should not have all the 8-6 offsuit combinations. What's up, Anderson?
Well, so I do have a question that is not from me, but it's very common on lots of my sessions. People ask, like, when you have the 7 yourself and you're facing this line on the turn, what makes you prefer the call over the re-raise? Like a lot of my students, they often have this question, like, when should I just call the 7 and when should I go all in? Most of them, they go all in that spot.
Depends a little bit. Okay, so I got an answer for you. You mean 3-bet versus call the turn, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got an answer for you. All right, so actually I was showing you some hands where I exploited people doing these kinds of things, which is what Linus did, and having the stupid like raise size that's weaker and smaller. Usually when pros do that stupid size, and instead of a big raise, it means that they're not as strong. It's actually quite a common sizing tell by a lot of pros, especially versus like a larger size. They usually don't do that with like a set of 9s. Fish do it with a set of 9s actually, so you can't really tell as much with them. But a lot of like mediocre pros or even like some top pros have this tell. So against those, yeah, it looks like you can re-raise against it. It looks like Davey picked up on that and re-raised something he's not supposed to re-raise. Said, okay, I think you got like a pair of 9s, Linus, and re-raised his ass. But even he wasn't sure, as you can see by he checking the river instead of betting. He would have probably bet if he thought Linus would have a 9. And that's often the case, that people have the mergey hand or the medium strength hand when they make the small raise. It's quite a tell. So that's one thing. Another thing is, yeah, you can, when they do that, you can put in these raise sizes that are, you can do an exploit such as re-raising to not very large sizes and betting not very large sizes, because all of a sudden when you re-raise, your range is uncapped, and what's going through their mind is essentially, oh shit, he's saying he's got a really big hand. I don't know how big it is. It's really hard to measure. There's almost no way to measure it, right? And there's almost no way to like play GTO against it. That requires some really, really alien AI level kind of thinking kind of stuff, which, yeah, if you play at top level stuff, you should do that, but forget it for now. That is to the option for the option of rebluffing. And so, yeah, like you're not very vulnerable when you re-raise over the top of someone raising you, because for this reason, your range is now basically uncapped, and they're not going to like rebluff you almost ever unless they're insane. There's only two kinds of people bluff you. One that is the insane kind who they just like smell weakness or whatever. They're more of an intuitive kind of player, and they're more of the type that tends to bluff way too much. That guy will re-raise you sometimes. And the second kind of guy is fucking top player AI. Maybe he's part cyborg. Maybe he's an alien from the next solar system, or maybe he's like the reptilian. I don't know. Like that guy will re-raise you too. But unless it's those two people, you're not getting re-raise bluffed if you put in another raise. So you can like put in some cute raise sizes, and that's fine. Does that answer your question?
Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
Okay. Yeah, maybe he's also a wizard. I didn't include that possibility too. If he's a wizard, then he might re-raise you. Not too many true wizards out there. Okay, so let's go on. What's the worst hand Linus bets for value with this size? Does he have an all-in size on the river? What do you guys think? So you see he bet 70%. He's got another 70% plus behind. And yeah, so here it is. He could have bet like, 180%. Think you should bet this size? You think you should bet all in? What do you think?
I mean, we have aces, right? So kind of makes sense to have it some frequency, right?
We don't really have aces, honestly. You mean like a set of aces? What?
On the river?
He has aces. Oh yeah, Linus has sets of aces.
Sorry.
I don't think that matters too much because it's just too rare of a combo. But we could say that we've got boats. Interesting idea though. You could yeah, maybe that's one thing to consider is how many boats and stuff you can have. Okay, Garrett, what do you think?
I kind of feel like the only options for Linus is either to check or to like jam, right? Because I'm kind of surprised that he's betting, right? Because I feel like 9x, Queen 9, his hand actually, not his range, but just his hand, has a lot of showdown value, right? Like he's beating anything, he's beating any bluff on the turn that the dude decided to, 3-bet with on the turn, right? So
yeah, I agree.
Like, and for that size, like for 70% size, like any hand that wasn't a bluff, right, is definitely snapping. So I think the only chance he has if he decides to like turn his 9 into a bluff is to jam, right? I don't think there's any other.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there on most of those decisions. I don't think David Jones is folding any value for the size. I don't think he's folding 7x for 70% pot. I don't know. Maybe he thinks Davey is a massive net. That could be part of what's going on.
I don't like Linus size. Like I don't think it accomplishes much. Like I have this intuition that it's just in between. Like if I were there and I was pretty sure I was betting for value, like let's say I have A7 or something, then I'm just gonna blast and let them hate their life, because at least I know, like for me, when I'm playing these big pots, I don't think it's about math anymore. It's about breaking the spirit. And when I do break their spirit, they just go autopilot, and they mostly call when they might call like a flush, like just out of desperation.
you're talking a bit of an exploit game. You
Yeah.
still have to use some kind of math somewhere to make sure you're, even when you're trying to break the spirit, there's some math behind things. Unless you just like, there is, at least with like the frequency, it's more the exploit type of math where they can't have enough hands in order to call, but you could do something such as think that they're calling a static. I think the word is calling a static range, where like they're just never folding a 7x. And inelastic, yeah, that's the term. And they just never fold a 7x and they fold everything else. In which case, yeah, you would pick like then you'd pick two sizes in that case. What you do is you'd pick like the size where they fold everything that's not a 7, and you'd move all in if they have a 7 and they're never folding. Then you could do something like that. For simplicity's sake, let's talk GTO for a little bit, and let's move on to the last questions before we run out of time. I'm okay with using the all-in size. I'm not really thrilled with this 70% size. I don't really know what's going on here, but all-in seems to be more of the move with like straights plus straights and flushes and boats. You could say, or at least flushes and boats. This is a bit of a weird one because the guy 3-bet the turn. But basically with very big hands that include at least flushes, possibly straights, and boats, you could justify a jam all in and a check, and then just have like whatever bluffs work, like 8-10-8 or whatever. I could live with that. I don't really like the 70% thing unless we're cooling on. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to be honest. Let's wrap up with the last questions. What does Davy's range looks like? Is this hand a bluff catcher? Or does it beat value? The answer to that, we kind of already danced around that one a bit. So it's a bluff catcher, but it's a pretty damn good one because it doesn't block any of the bluffs too much. It blocks some of the other guys, like trips and things like that. It could arguably tie, in which case you really don't want to fold things that can tie. And it takes away quite a bit of the guy's value. It's a really good bluff catcher, is the general answer to that. How would Davy play differently against a less skilled player on turn and river? That's an interesting question. I think Davy took an exploitative line, to be honest. I think that Davy had a read on Linus. I've seen Linus do these kinds of things too and try to punish him and have him station me, actually. So I think this is more of like a precise read and him trying to exploit this guy. I don't think it's like he might have done something a little bit different, like bet river, just call the turn. But
like
I think
it gave him rope, right?
Yeah, in this case, he gave him rope with if he had some kind of bluffs on the turn, I would say. Yeah, this is more of an exploit, I'd say, on the whole.
I know the frustration of loving poker, believing you could make a living from it, yet not knowing if it's even possible, where to start, or what your options are. If you're feeling the same, I've got a gift for you. An exclusive Jungleverse training available to my YouTube family only this month for free. It will give you the clarity you need to decide if poker can be your path in less than 60 minutes. All you have to do is click the link in the description. Welcome to the jungle.